Today we're gonna talk about drawing clouds. Someone asked me to kind of explain or show how I draw clouds, and I'm gonna show you a couple of ways you can do it. But as you can see, I have done the kind of day sky, midday sky kind of colors on the canvas here. It goes from blue to a more white, because this is the color that happens kind of in a bright, kind of good day. You get the kind of mid blue and then you go to a white in the bottom. So let's make a layer above the colors. I'm gonna pick a soft brush and I'm gonna go and lower it down a little bit on the density or opacity, if you want to call it that. Now, usually clouds are usually in this kind of shape, where it goes up and a little bit puffy, and you can see here it goes a little bit like this. And you can see I've made very soft brush and you get this kind of effect. I'm kind of just, dotting a little bit with the pen on the tablet just to get a little bit, small clouds like this. Now this is what you could do, and you could do a couple of these. If you want just a simple, maybe it's not, supposed to be a image where you are focusing on the clouds or the background effect or something like that. And you can do a couple of small clouds like this, and we already get something that's kind of convincing, it blends in. You can also lower up the opacity a little bit to make it a little bit more blending with the background like this. I'm going for 90 opacity here. Now that's the easy way to do it. This is if you have something that just is in the background, you want to show that it's clouds, you have a bright kind of day and stuff like that. What you could do as well is take these clouds that you have already here. Let's go and pick a blue color. We're gonna go a little bit lower on darkness, so we get a kind of dark side here. And I'm gonna do a new layer, and I'm gonna put it below. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take the same brush and I'm gonna do a couple of clouds in the background. The same shape as we have done before here. This is to make some clouds. Let's see, we can even take the brightness a little bit more down, even like this. Now this is very useful when you want to, for instance, make it so that the good weather is about to turn bad. There's something coming on the horizon. This is a good way to start the building of that kind of weather, but also to show that there's a contrast between light clouds and the dark clouds, and you can try and find a good balance, kind of like this perhaps. I lowered it to about 70% opacity, and they're lying in the background because it pushes the feeling that there's more clouds, but farther away. You could do it with, we can remove this, we can make another version of it. We can take the white once again and just go a little bit more with what we already have. So we go like this, and we perhaps do a couple of clouds here just to show that there is some clouds in the background of these clouds, sort of like this. And then we can lower it to get that feeling. But as you can see, the white is kind of hard to to see where it is. Is it in the front? Is it in the back? So that's why you probably want to, for instance, we could go and make changes in hue and saturation. We could make them, let's see, we're gonna go with a little bit darker, but not too much darker, and then we can lower the opacity a little bit, and then we get something that's working perhaps. What you should do is perhaps make it a little bit more dark blue and then try it on. Now there is one more way to make the clouds, and this is just to emphasize more of the structure of the clouds. Sometimes you get, you know, these dramatic, very dramatic kind of clouds. So I'm gonna go with a more kind of bluish gray down here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a brush, a little smaller brush, and I'm gonna go like this. I'm gonna create a sort of kind of texture to these clouds, because that's what happens when you get a little bit more dramatic clouds. You can see kind of the shapes, the puffiness, so to speak, in the clouds. And you can do this however you like to. Sometimes you can go like circles and stuff like that. Just remember that the higher you get up, the more the texture is supposed to disappear. So you get kind of like this. I'm gonna go and do a couple more here and here, and we can take a soft eraser and just make it go a little bit more softer, so it disappears when you get up there. And you can see we get a little bit more. Now it looks kind of bad, but we can blur it a little bit to make it look better, just so it blends more, but we don't want it to be too much disappearing. Or we could do, if you want to do that, you could do like this instead. We could take the same color and do the same kind of texture. Let's just make it like such. And you can take, for instance, a smudge tool of sorts, and you can go and make it a little bit more floaty, make it look a little bit more blurred, or that is more smudged into the cloud like this. And then you can of course go, if you feel like it still has too sharp edges, you can go and blur it up a little bit more, just so you get that, you know, that texture that's kind of good. And remember, you can also, you know, lower the opacity to get some cool effects like this. Now let's take it to another level. We have done kind of the midday kind of, you know, clouds like that. Also remember, if you want the really good, you know, realistic looking clouds, I would recommend doing a photo reference and try to get the clouds to be, you know, as similar to that photo as possible. Then you get the colors and the sky the way you want it. Photo reference is always good if you're not good at planting out clouds. So let's go, for instance, now to a more let's see, dark sky kind of thing. I'm gonna lower it a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. But the same thing is here. What you do with dark clouds, for instance, let's say we have, let's do a new layer, and we're gonna do a, let's say this is the moon shining bright. So we have the moon here. Here we go. And I'm gonna duplicate this, duplicate layer, and I'm gonna go very hard on the Gaussian blur. There we go, and we can do a strong blur on that, so we get some sort of moon here. And we're gonna take this layer above it, and now we could do clouds. And the same thing here, you could do them in this style. Usually when you do kind of dramatic dark clouds, they're usually a little bit more bigger, and you can also, you know, just go nuts with them depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Try different brush sizes as well, so you get the randomness in the cloud. But usually I go with this shape unless it's something specific that I want, or if I feel that I'm repeating the pattern too much, then you can try and do, you know, different ways of doing the clouds. But usually I go with the same pattern and then just try to, you know, emphasize and try to mix them together. Sometimes I just do very small version of them, but as you can hear, I'm dotting a lot. I'm just trying to create some patterns or randomness that I feel is working for the image. Because you can say, okay, a cloud is supposed to look like this, but you have to, you know, work to make it work in the image. That's the most important part. So for instance, I'm gonna go, because I want a little bit of clouds here in front of the moon. So I'm gonna go with a cloud that's a little bit more misshapen, but I also want a little bit more softness around it. And as you can see, I'm just trying stuff out. If you want to, try to do it on different kinds of layers. That also works. And for this, the same idea applies, but here you could use a more of a gray. You could do it like this. You take a white and take it as more smaller. Same thing here, you can do texture if you want that dramatic lighting. And I would recommend that instead of doing it on the bottom, if you have like me here, a moon, that means you have a light source you can actually follow. So you can do a little bit of like this, trying to make it look like the moon is actually giving the clouds a little bit of a light source. And as you can see, you can also do it like this. Try to change the pattern a little bit just to make it work for the image. And you can try different size brush sizes here just to get it to work for you the way you want it. Because there's all these kinds of way of doing clouds, and this is just my way of doing it because I usually don't do very much clouds. I just do the shape and try to make it work for the image, but usually there's no such focus on clouds and stuff like that. And since you perhaps feel that, you know, the white is too strong, well, that's because we're not finished quite yet. You take it and then you lower it down until you feel like, yeah, this is working, and then you have some sort of texture. As you can see, you can go very low and still get the feeling of some kind of texture. And you can do this a couple of more layers if you want to. If you want the clouds to have perhaps a color to another color, maybe you want it to be closer to the light source, maybe you want it to be more kind of purple or dark blue or something like that. But as you can see, same thing applies here. We can put some, let's take some more darker blue and put some clouds in the background here. Maybe a darker blue even, yeah, like something like this. And we're gonna go like this, yes. And just to make it look like there's actually some sort of clouds in the background of this, because it's on a layer on, you know, underneath all of these clouds. So I'm just trying to make it like that. You could do a multiply, you get darker there, but if you want to keep the color and then lower, you can do that. Sometimes multiply is good because then you get a little bit color into it, and then you can just lower it down until you feel it's working, and then of course do a little bit of blur if you feel it's way too sharp for you. So that's the kind of way that I do clouds. Of course, there are other ways to do it. I would also, you know, recommend just typing on Google and search for clouds or sky, and then space, and then clouds. Or you can search for, you know, dramatic sky or dramatic clouds, and you will get different kinds of version of it. If you want, you know, photo references for what you perhaps is after, because photo references are always good if you don't already have a vision for your image. that you really want, and there's no photo reference of it, then you would have to create from scratch. But it's always good to look at real clouds and real skies to get the kind of sense and the kind of pattern that they do, that they create, and to get a very good likeness or a very good feeling of clouds and skies and such. So I hope you have learned something, and I will see you in the next tutorial video. Bye!